The United States says it's considering what it calls punitive measures to try to put pressure on the Syrian government. Let's go to our correspondent, Culhane, live for us in Washington. We've heard some pretty strong words in the last week or so from the U.S. administration. What does it plan to do?
Well, that is the open debate in Washington right now. As you know, President Barack Obama was noticeably quiet when it came to Syria. Up until Friday, we'd only seen one mildly worded statement. His press secretary had a few statements. But then on Friday, that changed. The president put out a scathing statement saying that the violence must end and saying that Iran is actually helping Syria put down these protests. So the question is, the president says the violence must end. What is he willing to do to try and make that happen? Well, the U.S. already considers Syria a state sponsor of terrorism. There are already sanctions in place. There are about 20 individuals that are banned from doing business with the U.S. Most goods are already banned, although you can get a license, so there are some loopholes. But other than food and medicine and possibly some software, no one in the U.S. is really supposed to export anything to Syria. So the question is, what are they going to do next? There's been some talk about adding some more people onto the list, possibly looking to free some assets, although that might not be very effective because it doesn't look like the Assad family has many assets in the United States, although that could change. Really, I think what people think they're trying to do here in the U.S. is, if they go for sanctions, it'll be to send a message to the European allies that they should follow suit, because obviously those in Europe have a much stronger connection with Syria because of the U.S.-Syrian history.
Yeah, but the U.S. relatively recently, restored full diplomatic relations with Syria. So what is the relationship between Obama and Assad at the moment?
Well, it's still very much strained. Obviously, President Bush had targeted Syria. It was pretty well known that he would like to see regime change. We saw a definite change under President Obama. There was more of an outreach to the Syrian government. And according to those cables that we've all read on WikiLeaks, they weren't looking for regime change anymore. They were going to look for behavior change. There is a U.S. ambassador in Damascus. So the question is, there's been a lot of pressure from some in the Senate to recall that ambassador, to put some diplomatic pressure. But on all of the talk shows on Sunday, any politician that was asked said, we don't want to see any sort of military involvement. We don't want to see the U.S. Do anything like they've done in Libya and Syria. They are hoping, though, that the president will up the diplomatic pressure. We should find out a little bit more in about an hour and a half. That's when the White House press briefing begins. We'll see if the tough rhetoric continues.
That's Culhane in Washington. Thank you for that.